This is part one of a four-part series on time management for adults. And in this first part, we're going to be talking about identifying the problem. I'm Nicholeen Peck, and I teach parenting, good communication, and self-government all over the world. And in this video, we are going to be discussing time management. In this video, I'm going to share with you my own personal story and some of my journey to becoming a person who struggled with time management and a person who then became good at time management, and hopefully give you some things that you can do to properly identify the problems with time management in your own life. Time management is not something that comes supernaturally for me. I'm one of those live in the moment people. So I don't know if you know, but there's the people who are live in the moment, and then there's the people who are planners. The people who are naturally planners will thrive with their time management unless they're the type of planners that overplan and are more perfectionistic, because then sometimes they get so perfectionistic that they actually don't follow through on anything because they start feeling like they're not going to get all of it done. So you know what type of a person you are. I'm one of those people that likes to live in the moment. I can plan stuff, sure. In fact, I can follow through with a plan. I'm a super responsible person, but I would rather not have a plan. That is my happy place, where we can just go from minute to minute and I can just adapt and see what needs to happen next. But I recognized early on that this type of personality was not going to help me have the family or the life that I actually wanted to have. So I'm a busy person. I do have a high capacity, and I think part of that is because I can adapt well. So when a person doesn't have to live by a schedule, they're constantly adapting, especially if they're a highly motivated person who doesn't live by a schedule, which was definitely me. So I can just make everything happen really great as we go along. That's wonderful. If something goes wrong in my life, I can adapt. But the problem was, I would not remember where my life was necessarily heading. Where is the day heading? If I'm going to be a live in the moment person, so I homeschooled my children. So for instance, if it was windy outside, I'd say, oh, it's windy outside. Let's go and make kites and fly kites. Or oh, it's springtime, I want to go to the zoo. Let's go to the zoo. So those are all great experiences to have with my children. But what if I never taught them to read or never did their math? I mean, we've got to fit those things in as well. So I had to come up with, how was I going to manage my time? How am I going to make sure that I accomplish everything that I need to? And I wanted to be able to quantify my efforts too, which meant measure that I actually was accomplishing something. Because, you know, actually a person is pretty nervous sometimes when they take on a big thing that they've never done before, like, say, homeschooling their children or writing a book. Oh boy, the first book I ever wrote took me 2.5 years. And then when I finally sat down to write it, it took me 2.5 months. So this tells you, if I had applied time management much sooner, the book would have been done much sooner. Now we can make arguments for whether it was the right timing for the book or not, because I do think it came out at just the right time. Maybe I had to warm up to it. Maybe that was my own way of getting myself ready to finally get it done. But I know that it hung over my head for 2.5 years. I had told God I would write the book, Parenting a House United. I started working on it, and then it hung on me. It weighed on me. I knew I had to get this thing done, but I also knew I had so many other things to do. And when it came time for some free time in the day, I didn't want to sacrifice it to write the book. I was exhausted by the time of day that I could actually put in some time to write the book. So this was definitely a learning curve time for me. I realized early on that if I did not figure out how to manage my time properly, I was not going to be able to accomplish all the things that I feel like I was born to do. Do you feel like you were born to do something? I know I was born to do something. In fact, this is it. Teaching people how to govern themselves is what I was born for. Teaching people the principles and skills, the simple principles and skills that have been lost throughout the generations in the complexities of chasing after the mighty dollar and power and prestige and everything else. They've been lost. And I know that parents and children, that families will only be happy when they prioritize and bring the family back to what is most important. So that was a big one for me. I knew that's who I was supposed to become, but how could I do it if I never had time to study in my core books or read the other books or, maybe do my basic things like laundry, right? We all have so many things that we have to do, and if we don't figure out how to get those important ones done, never mind the other ones that aren't as important, but if we don't get the important ones done, we never get to the things that we know that we really want to do. And if we switch the tables and say, well, I know I have to do this, or I meant to do this, so I'm just going to do this, but I'm never going to wear clean clothes, we just don't feel good about the journey. So you have to have both, right? So that's where time management came in. So I changed things for myself. I decided to prioritize. I decided to habit train myself. I decided that I would live sometimes by a script when I am a live in the moment person. I decided that I would deliberately change myself and analyze myself on a regular basis. And I created a program for me that would work for me. And actually, over time, I found out that a lot of my programs and systems that I've created for myself are just what other people are looking for too. So what I'd like to share with you throughout this 4-part series is what type of a program I created for myself so that I could self-govern me in a way that involved time management, which was definitely one of my weaker things. I remember I told myself a long time ago when I had little children, okay, I've got 4 children, I get a 10-minute grace period for every child when it comes to being on time somewhere. So this meant, I told myself, I could be 40 minutes late and still be on time. Now, this was one thing that could reduce my stress from having to be on time, and that was important, but it didn't help me be on time. I had to come up with another system to actually get out the door on time. That part of me needed the most change. So let's talk about what time management really means. I want to tell you my triathlon story and also give you some assessment questions to ask yourself. But before I do, click the subscribe button now. And don't forget the notification bell. If you subscribe and hit the notification bell, then you will know when the other segments of this series come up. You're not going to want to miss them. Plus, there's so much on here about self-government. It's going to bless you and your family. Click subscribe now. So let's talk a little bit about what time management means, because that's really important. So time management means that you understand the concept of time, okay, number one, and that you understand how to budget your time, which means you know when to start and when to stop doing something. It also involves delayed gratification because we aren't always going to get to control time. So time management does not mean controlling time. It means acknowledging time. 2 very different things there. So if I can acknowledge the time that I have and decide what to do, when to do, and to recognize I might not always get every single thing done that I wanted to do in the time frame I thought I would do it. So this means that I am acknowledging my efforts towards something are the end goal, not actually getting the thing done by a specific time. That's not necessarily the end goal, but there's something I figured out. And I figured this out years ago. When I was a young mom, my father invited me to be part of a team triathlon with him. So he was going to do the biking leg, my sister was going to do the running leg, and I was supposed to do the swim. And I was not a swimmer. I told my dad, I said, okay, Dad, I'll go to the pool. If I can swim the distance of a half triathlon without stopping, then I will train for it. And I surprised myself. I was able to do that distance without stopping, and so I decided to train. Well, after a while of training, I was able to swim the necessary distance in 19 minutes flat. Now, that was a big accomplishment for me. When I got out in the water, in the open lake, swimming with other people, because a lake is way different than a swimming pool, I told myself, you know what? I can swim this distance. I don't know if I'll be able to do it in the time frame that I've planned for, but I will just not stop. That is my goal. I will keep going. I will press forward, having hope again and again. And then I will get to the end, and all I care about is getting to the end of the goal, even if it's not on my time frame. But here's the beauty. At the end of the day, when I looked at my time for just the swim, it said 19 minutes flat. It did not feel like 19 minutes flat. It felt like 2 hours or maybe even 2 days. I was not sure if I could make it at some points. And it was probably just a little bit of the stress. But in the end, I actually did exactly what I planned for. That is the beauty of deciding to just be in there with every minute that you've got, and then knowing when to pull back, and just recognizing that when you consistently put in the time, doing the things that you're supposed to be doing, then you will accomplish the goal as needed, probably right on time. So here are some questions that you can assess yourself with, okay? So number one, when I think about time and how much time I have or don't have in the day, am I spending more time thinking about time I don't have or time I have? Take a second and write that down. If you are thinking about time that you don't have more often than time that you do have, then you know you need help with time management, and you probably have a negative association with time. Here's another assessment question. When you are spending your time in the day, do you constantly think about what you're doing in the minute? Or do you constantly think about what has to happen next? If you are constantly thinking about what has to happen next, now it's okay if those come in once in a while because you got to keep yourself moving, right? But if you are constantly worried about what is coming next and you're not really living in that moment and feeling that moment that is happening now, then probably you have some bad habits when it comes to the way that you see time. In fact, you might have a scarcity mentality when it comes to time, meaning that you feel like time is always slipping away and you have to control time instead of using time to help you leverage the actions and the important priorities of your day. Here's another question for you. When you are having a moment with a person, but you know you're supposed to be making dinner, calling someone else, or doing something like that, do you turn off that person that's talking to you so that you can get to the next thing? Or do you spend time with that person? Now, I have a rule. For me, people are always the top priority. People over stuff and actions. People. So if you are able to focus on the people and not the task list that needs to be done, that's actually a pretty healthy thing. I had to teach myself to do that because I was so consumed with being efficient that I was not effective in my relationships. There is a difference between being efficient and being effective. And true time management involves understanding effectiveness. Another question that you really need to write the answer down to is, what thought, what words go through my mind when I'm thinking about time? And the reason why you want to have that written down is so that you can analyze whether it's productive or whether it's counterproductive. And as we go throughout the rest of the series, in this time management series, you should be able to determine if that thought in your mind is helping you be productive or counterproductive. And if it is counterproductive, then we need to change the thought. You can actually change your own thought. I hope that as we've been discussing about time management, and I've shared some of my stories with you, that you've been able to see possibly where you might be having a hang up in your time management. When you truly manage your time well, you should feel like you have more of it, not less. Many people who are focused heavily on time management constantly talk about how busy they are, and they have this scarcity mentality when it comes to time, and they end up always feeling like they don't have enough or they have less. You can have more, and I'm going to help you with that. So be sure to go to part 2 of this segment, all about creating new habits.